friends, welcome to the course of PHP and MySQLi CRUD tutorial. Inside this video, we'll see edit employee functionality. If I back to browser, inside last video, we had completed all the function of this list employee. This time, inside this list employee data table, we are getting the dynamic values what we have saved inside our table called table_employees. Now here inside this list, here we have two action buttons. The first one is edit and the second one is delete. So whenever we click on this edit button, we can see here inside this URL we have a query string parameter that is ID. ID contains the employee ID value. Now here, this is the layout of update employee. So on the behalf of this employee ID, what we are getting inside this URL, first of all we need to check that this value exists in our database table. If it exists, then we need to fetch that employee information and will populate inside this update employee form. And finally, after getting our existing data inside this form, if we update any value, click on submit, then it will update the existing information of that specific employee. So first of all, as we know that these are only the static values, so by the help of this dynamic value what we are getting inside this query string variable, we need to fetch the dynamic information from our table_employees table. So get back to our editor. Now here we have the layout called edit-employee.php. Now this is all about update employee layout. Inside this, we can see that here we have the static values. Inside this value attribute, now we need to fetch the dynamic value on the basis of this query string variable. So what we will do, go here. Now first of all, as we know that we need to work with object-oriented methods, so for that we need to include db-config.php. So what I will do, let's define PHP tag. Now in between these PHP tags, let's include ones, and here db-config.php. Now we are able to access MySQLi object. So here, first of all, we need to read this value from our URL. So what I will do, let's say employee ID equals to, we will use PHP global variable called get. By the help of this get, we will read our query string ID value. So here, this is ID value. So what I will do, let's say if not empty employee ID, not empty employee ID, it means we have some value, otherwise here we'll have our else block. So if suppose we are not getting any value inside this variable, so we need to redirect into our error.php file. So again inside this else block, we will use a header PHP function. So header, inside this let's say location, and let's define and call a file called error.php. So go back to application, let's create a file called error.php. Now inside this, what I will do, I will copy the layout of this edit employee, put it here. I will remove all the content. Let's say I will remove this whole content, and instead of s3 inside this container, as we know that this is a bootstrap class, so make sure that these files will be connected, and instead of update employee, let's call it as error layout page or simply error page. Now next I will remove this PHP code from here because we don't need this code here. Also I think we don't need this jQuery plugin files. Let's remove that. Go here inside this div class container. Let's define a div. We will use a bootstrap class called alert-danger, and inside this div let's say oops, something went wrong. Now if you save this page, and this error.php file we are calling right here inside this edit-employee.php. So in case if you're not getting employee ID into URL, so we will be redirected into this error.php file. So go back to browser. Now here we have the ID value. So what I will do, let's go and remove this ID, press enter, and as we can see that now we are redirected into this error.php file. But when we pass any value here, then we can see it is working and it stays back into this update employee template file. Go back to editor. Now here let's do some style. So style equals to margin top equals to 50 pixel. Now if you go here, let's remove this ID, press enter, and oops, something went wrong. Now let's say that we are passing or we are getting the ID value into this query string. Now on the basis of this ID value, we need to fetch the existing value of employee from tbl_employees table. Go back to editor, edit-employee.php. Now it's time to work over this if block. So here, get employee data from DB table. Now let's write query. So SQL equals to select all from the table name we have called tbl_employees. Copy table name, put it here, where ID equals to, and I will put a placeholder. This placeholder we will replace using bind param method. Now here let's say if, and let's define stmt which means statement, and we will call MySQLi object, and we will call prepare method, and look at IntelliSense, it is asking for query. So here we have SQL query. Now go here inside this if block, stmt, and we will call bind param method, and inside this look at IntelliSense, we need to pass the type. So here ID equals to placeholder, and this placeholder contains an integer value, so I, and here the value will be called employee ID. Now next let's say if stmt, and we will call execute method. Go here inside this if block. Now this time after execution of this query, we need to read our data. So what we will do, let's say stmt, and we will call get_result method. Now we will store inside a variable called result. Now if you go and print r, let's result, save these changes, go back to browser, let's reload this page, and we can see that we are getting a MySQLi result object where current field equals to 0. Let's press Ctrl U to get the source code. So here we can see current field equals to 0, field count equals to 5, num rows equals to 0. And it is because actually on the basis of this ID value, 100 does not exist, so that's why we are getting num rows equals to 0. But if we pass, let's say if we go and table check that, let's pass 2 here, so employee ID 2 exists, press enter. Now we can see that num rows equals to 1. So what we'll do, first of all we need to check that if employee exists or not. Let's comment this print r if result, this is a MySQLi result object. So I will call a property called num rows greater than 0, put here a else block. Inside this else block it means the employee does not exist, so in that case we need to redirect into this error.php file. So put it here, go here inside this if block, it means employee exists. So if employee exists, then we need to read the field values like name, email, phone number, designation, and after getting all those values we need to put inside this form fields. So first of all we need to read the existing values. So here let's say imp data, it's a variable, and result which is a MySQLi result object, and we'll call fetch all method. Inside this, or we will simply call fetch array, and inside this, look at IntelliSense, we can pass any of the key. So we want like the result should be an associative array, so we need to pass MySQLi underscore assoc. So MySQLi underscore assoc. Now here, let's say that if we want to get the name value of employee, so before getting values, let's define some variable to store employee data. So name equals to empty. Let's define all those fields. Email equals to empty, phone equals to empty, and designation equals to empty. After getting employee value, we are going to reassign the values of employee inside each of these variable. Go here. Let's say that name equals to emp data, and this time we'll get the existing value of employee on the basis of all these query in format of an array. So if we want to get the name of employee, so emp data name will be the index. Here let's say email equals to emp data equals to email, or let's do comment for now. What I will do, let's say print r, and if we type emp data, go to browser, reload this page. Now we can see that on the basis of this second number ID, we are getting the value. Let's reload the source code, pass to here, press enter. So we can see on the basis of this employee ID 2, we are getting ID equals to 2, name, email, phone, and designation. Go back to editor. Let's comment this print r, uncomment these two lines. So name equals to name, email equals to email, phone, and at the left hand side we have defined all these variables here, and we are reassigning with the employee data. So here emp data, this time we have for the phone number, designation, emp data, and here we have designation. Also let's fetch the employee ID, and I think employee ID we are getting inside this variable. Now this time we have all these values. Go back to our form, and inside this, instead of static value, I will remove, let's say PHP echo. Inside this name variable we will have the value. I will copy, put it here for this email address, and let's say $email. For phone number, it will be $phone, and for the designation, if we go and check the designation, so as we can see web-designer. So first of all, we need to check that if value is equals to the designation, then it will be selected. So here we will put PHP if else block. So if designation equals to, and I will copy web developer. So if designation matches with this value, then it will be selected. So echo selected. Let's copy this piece of code, put it here for SEO. So if designation equals to SEO, then this option will be selected. If designation is equals to web designer, then this option will be selected. Now if we save all these changes, go here, let's reload this page. So as we can see, on the behalf of the second number ID, we are getting the existing information of an employee. Let's pass 200, which does not exist. So in this case, we'll get error page. Now go back. Let's go back to our list employee. Now I'm clicking on this first number employee. We are getting our first employee data. I am clicking on this third number employee, and this time we are getting our third employee data. So successfully guys, we have completed now one more functionality, that is to get our single employee information on the behalf of this ID value. Now in the next video, we will work on the functionality if we update any existing information, click on submit, then how to update the existing information of an employee from update employee layout. So for this video session guys, thank you for watching and have a great day.